Welcome back to the PC Gamer Weekend live stream. I'm now joined by Ollie Smith, Blitz Project Lead at Creative Assembly on Halo Wars 2.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And thank you very much for joining us on the stream. So, Halo Wars 2 is one of our headline games at the event this year. You've been presumably around the event. You did a talk earlier this morning. How's the show been so far?
It's been really good. It's been really interesting seeing how busy it is. That's been fantastic. But it's really nice kind of looking at just how many strategy games there are out there at the moment. It's been great looking at Dawn of War. You got the other Creative Assembly games, Total War, Warhammer, and then End of Space and things from Amplitude as well.
Obviously, I mean, Creative Assembly has a deep history of strategy. Halo is new to you. Introduce, I mean, Halo Wars 2 to, I guess, our audience, but also, what was it like discovering that universe for yourself and beginning work in that universe for yourself?
Oh, well, I was always a huge Halo fan from when I was a child, so it's a really good kind of opportunity to get to work on such a huge franchise. And it was obviously a big compliment that when 343 decided they wanted to bring Halo Wars back, and the time was right that they would approach us. We'd obviously had a lot of experience making console games with Alien Isolation, and then obviously our strategy experience made us the go-to guys. So that was really fantastic. It was really nice, not just kind of continuing the stories that we kind of admired from afar in terms of the original Halo Wars, but also being able to kind of extend that and expand the universe ourselves. It was fantastic to add new units, introduce new characters. Halo Wars 2 has this whole new enemy faction called the Banished, a kind of rogue Covenant splinter group led by a brute warlord called Atriox, who is our kind of new big bad. A very fun guy to play around with, both mechanically and narratively.
And the original Halo Wars was an RTS game designed to be able to work on a control pad, to work multi-platform, which not every RTS does.
No.
But Halo Wars 2 is obviously moving that forward and doing new things as well. Like, what is new with Halo Wars 2 in that regard? Like, how have you evolved on that original form?
So what was fantastic about the original Halo Wars, which is, I believe is still the biggest selling console strategy title of all time, was actually how well it translated those controls, that traditionally mouse and keyboard, to a gamepad. We tried not to fix what ain't broke in that respect, but we really wanted to increase the depth of strategy. One of the things that we've been trying to do with Halo Wars 2 is create this RTS for everyone. That's our phrase, and so that's for people who are really experienced with RTS. We want to make sure they're getting the kind of features that they know and expect in that depth of gameplay. But we also want people who are maybe Halo fans who haven't tried this genre before to get in and feel familiar, and that's why we put a lot of effort and love into the units and characters. But then also we want to grab people who may have bounced off RTS because they found it quite intimidating, and that's what this new mode, that's the mode I'm the lead for, Blitz, is all about. It was about kind of addressing some of the things that players found scary about real-time strategy.
Right.
A lot of that was to do with kind of having to juggle all these plates of base management and tech building, tech upgrades and things like that, and we've replaced that with this card game system essentially.
So Blitz is your sort of catch-all term for the modes that use this deck building, card draw system for governing what units you have available to you.
Yes, so in Blitz what happens is you craft a deck quite traditionally out of cards that represent the units and powers that you find elsewhere in the game, and that deck is your army. And the contents of that deck is defined by the leader you choose. So each leader has specific cards that they have access to that promote certain gameplay styles that might be more support focused or tank focused, kind of imagine those traditional roles. Then you take that deck into battle. We've got Blitz multiplayer or Firefight, which is this kind of horde mode type affair. And during that battle you can you have a hand of cards drawn from your deck, and you can play those cards directly onto the field. The idea is that it skips that base building, but it keeps that fantastic call and response counterplay that RTS is all about.
Well, why don't we jump in and have a look at, so we're taking a look at Firefight today, that's correct?
Yep, sure.
Right? So if we jump over to the game, we'll jump into Firefight lobby.
Cool.
So talk us through how this works.
Every time you go into a game, whether that's traditional multiplayer or Blitz, you'll be picking a leader, and each leader you can have access to multiple different decks. So we want to make sure that whilst leaders have certain styles that they excel at, there are certainly still different builds within that leader. This is Proving Grounds. This is the Blitz map we have at launch.
Right.
And actually what's fantastic about Firefight is that it gives that kind of a slightly lower stress place to kind of learn the mechanics. A little bit easier for me to talk and play at the same time.
Yeah, indeed. Because beyond Blitz, Halo Wars 2 also has a lot of those more traditional RTS means of generating your army.
Yes,
and so on.
absolutely. So the traditional multiplayer modes are all still present and correct. You've got that that kind of deathmatch and domination, which both involve that kind of base building that you know and love from the original game. We've also got this mode called Strongholds, which kind of keeps the bases but gives you a lot more money. It's all about kind of territory control and kind of halfway house really between Blitz and the more traditional modes.
So your victory condition in Firefight, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to maintain control of these 3 points.
Yes.
And for as long as the opposing force controls them, that sort of deadly percentage counter at the top.
Exactly, yes.
And when that reaches 100, that's bad
it's
news.
game over, yes.
Okay.
So it's quite interesting. Like early on, we try to make it so that it's quite easy to get out. This is about laying the groundwork for those future waves. You're going to want to get a lot of support units and things like that. But really, kind of early on, we wanted that power fantasy that you don't usually get from kind of traditional multiplayer because of the balance.
Right.
You can actually play this mode up to 3-player co-op, and that gets it's quite a blast.
Right.
Because obviously you can go in as different leaders. Those decks can have complementary effects to each other. So I need to just grab some energy there. And you can end up with some pretty insane combos.
Right.
We had a match literally yesterday, actually. The QA got their hands on the build because the early access launched yesterday. And I think they managed to get to wave 87, which is over an hour of holding out against this stuff.
Oh, wow.
So they really like to put the mode through their play.
So you've got your current hand of cards along the bottom of the screen. Energy, which is the purple value on the right hand side next to the minimap. I don't know if people can see that.
So that's what determines whether I can afford to play a card or not.
Okay, and you can deploy a card anywhere you can see, is that correct?
Anywhere I have line of sight, yes. I have to be quite smart about that because when a unit comes in, it comes in at half health and deals half damage. And what we wanted to do there was discourage kind of spamming stuff into the battlefield.
Right.
One of the things we did with Blitz was we actually got rid of Fog of War, mostly because we wanted players to anticipate what the enemy was bringing and choose a good counter. Right. Because you don't have traditional bases, scouting as we know it doesn't really work for Blitz because there's nothing to scout, there is no base.
Yeah.
So that was...
you're not going to be scouting like a key unit production building.
Exactly.
It's a wave. Yeah, of course.
But each deck only has 12 cards, so you're going to learn. Well, in the main multiplayer, you're going to learn what your enemy has pretty quickly.
So there you were destroying the energy canister. I'm calling out the wrong thing, but and gathering up the energy so you can deploy more troops. Is it only ground units that can gather that energy?
Yes, it's only ground units and only units that have recovered from their deployment fatigue.
Right, so you can't just plonk some units down.
Exactly, that was a strategy early on in our prototypes where players would kind of bunny hop around the map by getting flying units to provide that line of sight and spawn stuff in.
And some of those deployments, actually you're doing it now, I played earlier in this ODST drop with the more accurate placement of the drop pods is kind of an interesting mechanic, because you can use it to do damage, correct?
Exactly, yes, and these are kind of leader powers, so the ODST are one good example of that, but also the Archer missiles that if I'm lucky I'll be able to afford soon. Because they're kind of immediate damage dealing things, we wanted to make sure that players could lead their shots appropriately, so we certainly take a lot of cues from kind of MOBA skill shots and things like that when getting that. It's
an interesting mix of things, because when you said, the sort of regular damage ability, in a card game you're talking about essentially a burn ability, right? You're taking instant damage for the cost and resources. But when you've talked about balancing those different leaders or giving them identities, how much of that identity comes from what people might think of as RTS archetypes, and how much of it comes from what people might think of as a card game archetype? It's
really interesting because we've had to kind of balance both, and obviously we wanted to make sure that this mode felt familiar if you were coming to it from the campaign or something like that. But at the same time, it's been really fun going, well, we're taking this card game terminology and language, waiting for him to recover, and how would those kind of mechanics, how would taunt from Hearthstone translate into an RTS? And we actually, our kind of version of that would be something like, hold on, let's just deal with this guy. Will be something like guard, which is a keyword that is, there we go. It's just so satisfying. Keywords are kind of a special thing that are unique to Blitz. We wanted to make sure that a card, even when you've got large armies in play, can still turn the tide of battle. So one of our keywords is guard. That's a terrible deployment there. And what that does is the unit takes the damage of anything in its aura, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
So it's actually a fantastic counter to something like the suicide grunts that we have, because, boy, he does not like my my troops there. Because if there's a big AoE damage power incoming, a guard unit can just absorb it all and protect the rest of your army.
That is actually, and that in itself feels like sort of shades of MOBA in that sort of skill design as well. When you talk about applying that to an isometric game with 3D, 3D freedom of movement, like that is an interesting hybrid existence for the time.
We certainly looked at a lot of MOBAs, and obviously a lot of MOBA fans in the office, because I mean we're all strategy fans of all sorts. And one of the things that we kind of looked at was how they simplified the RTS to that degree and added the depth elsewhere in the skills and powers of a single unit. We certainly still wanted to keep that scale. We think that's really important for Blitz, is that hordes of armies coming in. Oh well, those guys have come back.
So I noticed you're doing sort of a lot of map-wide strategy here. You're focusing on gathering the resources and keeping line of sight in key areas, and presumably you've deliberately got those troops positioned there because they can then respond to A or B, depending on how that's going. Is how important is micromanagement?
So it's interesting.
Maybe another RTS.
Yeah, I think certainly when you're playing with a mouse and keyboard, it's very micromanagement certainly gives you a nice skill advantage. It's obviously crucial for the main multiplayer modes. What we did want though was to make sure that with Blitz, with the card hand, that was where the bulk of your strategic decisions were. Right. We wanted the skill differentiator to be about playing the right card at the right time, rather than necessarily as influenced by what you did afterwards.
And that must have kind of interesting ramifications for player versus player competition, where suddenly perhaps the knowledge ceiling of the game is a little bit higher in terms of which cards interact with which and how to counter a particular strategy, rather than simply tactical execution determining the outcome of a fight as it might do otherwise.
Yes, we wanted it to be a game of counters, so to speak. In fact, what we've actually done is, for newer players, that we've added to the cards these kind of traffic lights you see underneath the artwork there. That gives players a guide to kind of how effective that unit is against the different classes.
Okay, so is that good against troops?
Yes, good against troops and vehicles.
Not great against air.
Against air, yes. These Wolverine guys, fantastic anti-air. Not so
good
hot.
luck in every other context.
But they do have the detect keyword, which is important for detecting stealth units.
Right. How does stealth work in this game?
Stealth units are kind of essentially invulnerable. We wanted to make sure that detect was a key component of your deck and your strategy. So while a unit is cloaked, other units won't attack it.
Right.
It can attack back, but then the moment detect appears, then it basically removes all the cloak effects.
Okay, so a little bit like how there is line of sight is important, but fog of war isn't as much.
Yes.
Like it's not an invisibility power so much as, again, a little bit maybe like the damage, moving damage around. It allows you to kind of manipulate how a fight will play out.
Yeah, to us, cloak is how you would build fog of war into a deck, if that makes sense. That's how you would do kind of surprise attacks and ambushes and flanking maneuvers. Is a cloak-focused deck. Cloak's actually a surprisingly good counter to some of the Uber units. In this game, you can bring out things like scarabs and stuff, real game-changing things that are short-lived but can really change the tide of a battle. You get a scarab dumped on your point, then and cloaking your army is a great way to just live to fight another day.
It's interesting. So I guess we've talked a lot about card games and strategy games, touching on MOBAs. Obviously, this is also an adaptation of. It's named for Firefight, right? Originally from ODST, and then subsequently in every other Halo game, I think. what of that mode's kind of, beyond, obviously Wave Survival Co-op is the common factor here, is there anything from traditional Firefight, I would say first-person shooter Firefight, that you sort of thought you wanted to make sure you got into this game?
Yeah, we really liked the, well, we liked the low-stress kind of co-op nature. That was really important. We originally, when we first made it, it wasn't as round-based. We wanted to make sure that was really, really clear. My favourite thing about Blitz is actually things like the kill streaks and stuff, because that's what I always loved about playing.
It's nice having the announcer in this context, right?
Yeah. We wanted Blitz to be kind of a slightly more arcade mode, a bit more kind of Super Smash Brothers with Halo characters, and so getting that kind of sense of fun, I think, was really important for us. And it was fantastic to be able to get Jeff Steitzer back to give us some good overkills and things like that.
And the array of characters available at launch, I mean, am I right in assuming that that's the kind of thing you're planning on building upon? It seems like a perfect platform to build out into the life of the game, right?
So there are 6 leaders at launch, and then if you pick up the game in the first, I think it's a month or so, then you can grab Forge, a character from the first Halo Wars, for free. New leaders will be added over the course of the next few months, and all of those will come with their own decks and unique cards and things like that. So when you first get a leader, you'll get some booster packs that give you a bunch of that leader's unique cards, but then also you'll be able to earn those cards in the packs you earn from daily challenges and things like that going forward.
So, so that's how the kind of the card ecosystem balances out through daily quests and achievements and things like that. Does it plug into the other modes? Can you earn card packs by playing other parts of the game?
Yes, you can. So obviously the cards are unique to Blitz, but the way you earn cards is from engaging in any kind of aspect of Halo Wars. You earn XP as you play. Every time you level up, you get a card pack. When you play through the campaign for the first time and we introduce new units and powers, then you'll get a card pack themed at the end of it with those units in. So you get a really nice collection by playing through the campaign and learning how those units work and how to apply them.
So even though you're periodically looking away from the game to talk to me, this appears to be going spectacularly well.
Well, I've been playing this for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, but nonetheless. So, I mean, so the way, and maybe people who weren't familiar with Firefight traditionally, is it's getting harder as it goes, right? You've broken through the easy and normal difficulties, and now you're onto hard. How deep does that rabbit hole go? You mentioned it goes a long way.
So it goes to heroic, and then legendary after that, and then after that we've got nightmare. But nightmare really is a nightmare. It's I think we throw more units on the screen than any other part of the game at that point, and it gets quite spectacular. Our QA are just fantastic at this kind of stuff. They have a whiteboard in the office, and it is just. People will put up their scores and then they'll go, yeah, that doesn't count because we changed the scoring in that build. So,
do you find that the types of decks people build for Firefight vary a lot from the types of builds they might build for traditional competitive? But
yes, absolutely. It's another deck building challenge, and that was another way. You kind of imagine that if you really want to take this mode seriously, then you'll build a couple of different. Types of deck. You might build a deck that's just for you going in 1v1, and then you'll build a different deck to go in with your friends because there's that team synergy, and you'll go, okay, well I don't have to be as well rounded when I'm going in with my friends because my friend will have me covered in terms of, let's say, anti-air or that kind of stuff. You can have support decks that farm energy and pay for your teammates' kind of tankier units and things.
That's cool, and that maybe has then in that sense echoes of old school FPS Firefight, where players did naturally fit themselves into different roles within the team, even though the kind of common skill set was maybe a little bit more similar.
This is maybe a bit more class-based, yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well,
it's all falling apart now.
Okay, I wonder if we've got time to let it fall apart.
We
are unfortunately out of time with Halo Wars 2, but thank you so much for bringing the game onto the show.
No, thank you.
Yeah, great to see, and it's a really genuinely very interesting merging of ideas that apparently fit together.
Yeah,
remarkably.
Well, I hope it's been great to hear what the community think when we did our beta, and with the game coming out probably on the 21st.
It's on the 21st, I was going to ask you, so it's out very soon, that's next week, isn't it?
Exactly, yes, and the Legendary Edition is already out. In fact, it came out last night in early access.
Right, okay, so people are already playing.
Yes.
And you're here showing it to people.
Yes, not earning my card packs.
Indeed, not getting on the ladder early.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ollie. Enjoy the rest of your show. We'll be back in about 10 minutes with Alex from THQ Nordic, developers of Risen and Gothic. See you then.